Hello, and welcome to the podcast today. I'm welcoming my guest, Kate Anthony, who we have recorded podcasts together before, and it's a great pleasure to have you on the show again. Kate is an author, she's a high conflict divorce coach, she is the host of the Divorce Survival Guide podcast, and I'm super glad to have you here again. Thank you so much for being here
Yeah,
today.
thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
I was really honored to read your book. The D
Thank
Word
you.
is your latest book.
hmm
And this is, um, it's a guide through what happens before, what happens during, how to manage after divorce.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess, I think your audience is principally women, right? It,
Yes, I work
yeah,
primarily with women. My audience is primarily women, although I do get messages from some men who are like, "Hey, I listened to your podcast and I really relate
yeah,
to this from, I get a lot of men who say, I feel like I'm the quote, the woman in my situation. And I always say, like, no, you're not. Like, you're not the woman, you're a guy.
yeah,
If you relate to what I'm saying, then just switch the genders, please.
yeah.
You're welcome here and please hang out. For
No,
sure.
that's great. And I think we're just in the reverse situation because I am mostly talking to men after
hmm
divorce, the dads
hmm
in this uh, post-divorce family situation. And I get women reaching out every once in a while wanting to work with me. And I think that's a great thing in both
Great. Yeah,
directions. Um,
absolutely.
so it is a great book and I recommend it to everyone, um, male or
Thank you.
female.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you.
yeah, I think that the world would be a better place if they all had someone like you, um, advising them about how to do this because we don't come with a factory setting for you know for a divorce. Here's what you do.
We sure don't. We sure don't. And I think that's really the importance of a divorce coach because
Mhm.
you don't know what you don't know. And
Yeah,
unfortunately, your attorney is not going to walk you through it in the way that I think they should, to be honest. But that's not their training, right? They're there for the legal stuff, and that's great.
yeah,
Um, but if you are feeling emotionally unprepared or you've no idea what's going on, and we divorce coaches sort of bridge the gap between the emotional chaos and legal strategy, right? So we want to help you process all the emotional chaos that you've been experiencing and the healing and the trauma and all of it so that you can actually show up in a processed, healthy, rational way to your divorce. Whether that is if you're in a high conflict situation and you actually have to really think strategically, or you're not, and you just don't want to get caught up in the way that the legal system can sort of steamroll you into a more high conflict divorce,
yeah. And that
right?
unfortunately happens a lot. Like
hmm
nobody ever wants to think that their lawyer is someone who is participating in that, but
Yeah.
it's just the way the system is structured, unfortunately, that the more the higher the conflict, the more the lawyers are likely to earn from resolving it for you.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so it's not in their, that's where their best interest actually diverges from your best interest.
Mhm.
And they're not likely to help you through as you just said, those highly emotional roadblocks. They are more likely to use them as fuel for
Mhm.
prolonging
Mhm.
this very lucrative process for them, right? And a very costly one
Exactly.
for you.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So I'm sure that you do, um, well, something similar to what I do in the sense of helping your clients uh, to have a strategy that the lawyer implements for you instead of giving your future over to the lawyer to make all kinds
Right.
of decisions for you.
Absolutely. Yes, exactly. Exactly. And, that could be really making sure that the children are at their center of everything and they're never put in the middle and they're not used as pawns because the system loves to do that for you. Um, and it could be protecting yourself from post-separation abuse and, all of the stuff that goes along with that. Right. So it really, I mean, it's individual. I think that, you know, for me, it's what's in the best interest of the children and uh, protecting if there has been any form of domestic violence, whether that's emotional abuse or anything in the relationship, protecting against that continuing throughout the divorce and separation.
Right. And um, how do you, how can I ask this? How do you see the finding your way through the situation where the two parties have just a dramatically different idea about what is in the children's best interests? I think everybody wants to think that they're looking
Yeah.
out for their children's best interests, and that looks like very different things on either side of the table.
Yeah, and it's really complicated because, of course, the court talks about that all the time. It's like, what's in the best interest of the children? But the court actually doesn't uh, do a lot of research or training about
Yeah.
children, right? I think the best thing you can do is hire a co-parenting specialist to help in your divorce. The very best thing you can do. Hire either, somebody who is trained or certified as a co-parenting specialist or somebody who is a child psychologist who specializes in divorce, right? You really want someone who is not, I mean, at the end of the day, I think parents tend to have the best intentions for their children, but they also are fiercely protective and not always thinking very clearly when they're in this extreme emotional upheaval,
Yeah.
right? So, for example, you have a lot of people who say, um, that they don't want their children with their ex for, for whatever reason, right? He's never been around. He's always been the working parent. I'm the stay-at-home mom. I should have full custody, right? The solution is not full custody and no custody,
Right.
right? The
Yeah.
solution might be a slow step-up plan so that we can ease the children into getting used to be like, I don't think it's in the best interest of the child who's been with one parent 100% of the time to
Right.
then get split 50-50. I don't.
Yeah.
And if both parents are healthy, rational people and both safe parents, then I think it is in the best interest for the child to have a relationship with both parents. I think it's really bad for kids to be withheld from another parent. Um, Honestly, even if they're abusive, if there's any physical danger, like
Yeah.
all bets are off,
That goes
right?
without
This
saying. Yeah.
it well, unfortunately, it doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Because in the courts,
You're right.
in the courts, it doesn't go without saying, because most judges are not trained in domestic violence, and they will say something. They'll say things like, well, he never abused the kids; he was only abused you. So, right, and then the children are put in danger. So, I think it should be said, and I think it's really important that you know studies have shown that having a relationship with both, having access to both
Yeah.
parents is important for children, you know down the line, right? The long-term
Yeah. Of
effects
course.
is that they need to have access to both parents. And look, if one of the parents isn't, quote, not safe, the children being able to choose down the line is important, because what will end up happening is they will um, align with the parent that they've been withheld from, probably, because they're mad at the other parent for having
Yeah.
kept them away. Right. It's a much broader
Yeah.
conversation, but it it really is. So we have to. I don't even know where I started on this, but I'm sorry. I went down a I
No, it's good.
went down
Rabbit
a
holes
rabbit
are
hole.
good.
Rabbit holes are great. So It is, it's in the right. So we don't know what's in the children's best interest always, right? And we're leaving it up to a court. So hire a professional, hire someone who's going to come in and do an assessment and say, you know what? You're right. You're both right. It is important for them to have a relationship with both parents. And maybe we need to ease them into this transition because that
Yeah.
would be best for them. But I think hiring a professional, if you were to, is probably one of the most important things that you can do. If you were to do something like a collaborative divorce, for example, a child psychologist or child custody specialist, they're part of the team
Yeah.
for a reason, right? So I really do think that's the best thing you can do for your kids.
Oh, that's so great. And I think, well, it's a wonderful thing that there are now more and more people like yourself hosting podcasts, writing books, doing coaching, that it's out there, it's
Mhm,
available now
mhm,
in a way
mhm.
that it wasn't, you know, 30
Absolutely.
or 40 years ago. Even like in terms of numbers, like even in the last 5 to 10 years, it's just kind of exploded. And uh, well,
Absolutely.
that
Oh,
can
yes.
only it can only be a good thing, right? Like that everybody should have this kind of support so that those really unhappy stories don't have to be happening. If
Mhm.
people can have
Absolutely.
support. I
Yes.
I've unfortunately heard more than once that even people who go to, let's say, a regular counselor or therapist are sometimes given
Ugh.
not such great advice from
Mhm.
even those people who you would think are trained,
Oh, no, but they're
but
not.
they're not. They're just
They're
not.
not. That's the thing. Yeah. I mean, listen, there are more bad therapists out there than good.
Isn't that
Um,
awful? It's
yeah,
awful.
it's
Like,
terrifying.
how do you even know who to trust anymore?
Yeah. Well, you have to do your due diligence and you also have to, um, you have to take recommendations and you have to look for people who specialize in the things um, that you need. And not everybody specializes in divorce. Not everyone specializes in child development, domestic violence. Therapists are given, I think, zero training in domestic violence in the basic
Yeah,
therapy
yeah,
training,
yeah,
right? Which means that if you are suffering from domestic violence and you go into therapy with your partner to try to, heal communicate better, therapy will do more damage to you in the long run, first of all. Um, and you would think that a lot of people would think that they would rely on a therapist to say, "Hey, actually what's going on here is domestic violence." That's not the case.
yeah,
Unless they've done additional training, that is not true. And so it is important, to find somebody. You want to find a children's specialist. You want to find somebody who is a therapist for children who has advanced training in helping, and if you can find someone who's, helping children through divorce, like even better. But at
yeah,
least find a children's therapist,
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I actually, it's no surprise to you, but I hear it all the time in the
Yeah.
course of the work that I do with step families,
Yeah.
that people have been to a family counselor and gotten what I consider to be such bad advice because
Right.
they think that they're giving people the same kind of advice that they would give in a regular nuclear family where everything is different. All the dynamics are different. It's not going to work that way. Um, so yes,
Yep.
people have been unfortunately like further traumatized, as you said, by
Yeah.
the fact that the therapist is now agreeing in some way with a like a really incorrect situation that's happening, or giving them
Yep.
a flawed solution
Yep.
that then bombs, and now they feel betrayed or a little gun shy about
Yeah.
going back into it. So um, yes, it's
Yes.
very, it's not just therapy, and it's not just counseling, and it's not just, you know, coaching. Like, you really need somebody who has their finger on the pulse of what's actually going on in this kind of situation in your home.
Absolutely. 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 And I will say too that it's really hard to find therapists now. Since the pandemic, they're overrun.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good thing that more and more people are seeking help. Like, I think our collective mental health took such an enormous hit that we all realized we needed help.
Yeah.
And they are really overrun. I know therapists who are like, I literally can't respond to the messages I receive.
Oh my gosh.
And so, the good news about the pandemic is that, at least in the US, right, we have um, state licensure, right? So you can't see a therapist who's not in your state.
Mm.
A lot more therapists are doing coaching
Yeah.
so that they can work with people across. My therapist
Yeah.
is, she's my coach, but she's my therapist. But she's in a different state. And more people are doing virtual than ever before. So you don't
Yeah.
have to have someone in your town,
Yeah.
you
No, that's
know?
a great point. That's a
Mhm.
great point. And um, people are also doing legal coaching, by the way, because the same is true of lawyers who
Yeah,
can't, they can't give you, they can't practice as lawyers in another state. But
right.
certainly there are people who do legal coaching who can
Mhm.
um, do the kind of, for lack of a better word, strategizing, or,
Mhm.
talking about
Sure.
how to, the order of events, or
Yeah.
where to put your time and attention at which
Mhm.
part of your journey, um, when you can't find somebody close to you, instead of just taking the bad advice or whatever. It's now possible to reach out and get, for instance, let's say, a second opinion or something from someone
Mhm.
else who looks
Sure.
over your situation and lets you know what they think about it. So that's great.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
what what else can you leave us with here from your amazing book, which is called The D Word, which I see behind you,
There
on your
it is.
desk there?
Yeah,
Um,
it's called The D Word, Making the Ultimate Decision About Your Marriage, and really it's about helping. It's written for women. I love that you said that men should read it too, because I think they should. I think there's a lot in there that would help them understand why women are more
yeah,
frustrated and in their marriages. I mean, 69% of divorces are initiated by women. So, as a preventive measure, perhaps more men should read it. Um, but sorry, my dog is
that's
having a
okay.
moment. It's life, right? And so yeah, but it really is focused on helping women make the decision, right? Because a lot of women they know they're unhappy, they don't know why. Is it me? Is it them? Is it the system? And the
Yeah,
answer is yes. It's usually all
that's
of those
all.
things.
Yeah.
So yes, and in terms of anything else that I can leave people with about it, I have a chapter or a section in the introduction about staying for your children,
Mm,
about whether you should stay for your kids, and I think that that's a really important read because I mean, look, if you're listening to this and you're already on the other side of it, maybe it's a moot point, but it also might give you a little bit of um, extra clarity that like you probably made the right choice. If you were in if you were raising your kids in an environment that was less than loving and supportive, then you know what? You made the right choice and you're now giving them the opportunity to see something different. And so now it's your responsibility to create that. Whether it's with your ex or soon to be ex or with a new partner or just in your own home,
yeah.
right? I know that when I got divorced, like I am not remarried, right? But I have a very peaceful, loving, welcoming, and nurturing home. And my ex-husband does not have that. And so my son knows the difference. And at 18 has chosen to be here, live here full time. Now, he sees his dad and they have a relationship and all of
Yeah.
that. But there you give what I call the gift of perspective. And that's what gives them a healthy relationship model down the line, whether you repartner or not.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's really great. And I know that when I wrote to my community about doing this session with you, I said, I think this is a book that, all the divorced dads in my community would want to not only read, but to offer to their ex-wife, because it is so full of, compassion and wisdom, clearly directed at women, that
Sure.
I think it can make a difference when someone can feel you in their corner saying wise and sensible things.
Yeah.
That I think it can really help those conflicted relationships, and to make the choices really that are actually in the best interests of the children, which sometimes
Absolutely.
it's not aligned with what you feel like your own best interests are, and that's really hard to do.
It's really hard, right? It's really, really hard. And I love that you said that, because I would love that, right? Everything I do for kids. If you don't have kids, I really don't care how you divorce. I really don't care. Go for it. You want to waste tens of dollars on
Yeah,
litigating and
yeah,
being fine. Have at it. If you have children, as far as I'm concerned, you don't have a choice. Um, and there are ways to invite your ex into a more collaborative and kind and loving process. You can still have boundaries, like all the boundaries. I'm all for boundaries, but there is a way to do this that can have, you know, less of an impact on your children. And as far as I'm concerned, as a parent, that's your job.
yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. We're on the same team. That is
Yeah,
for
for
sure.
sure. Yeah.
So tell people, please, where to find you, and of course, I'm going to put it in the show notes.
Sure. Everything about me is on my website, which is kateanthony.com. And I have my podcast is the Divorce Survival Guide podcast. It's on all platforms. You can also find it on my website. And I am on Instagram at the Divorce Survival Guide. And the book, The D Word, is available everywhere you buy books.
Wonderful.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much for being here. This was a great conversation, and I'll look forward to staying in touch with you.
Yeah. Thanks, Tracy. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Okay.